Welcome to SoulShift, the podcast that challenges you to rethink what's possible through the lens of community wisdom and social justice. We are a community that delves deep into the people, stories, and movements, framing the radical possibilities that shape our world. I'm your host, JyOba X, and today we explore a profound and often painful subject: the political assassinations that have left deep scars on American society and, more specifically, Black social movements. How have these tragic events influenced the fight for justice and changed the course of history? In this episode, we'll begin to answer that question by examining political assassinations that have historically disrupted Black social movements and our quest for racial equity and justice in both the United States and across the African diaspora. So from a geopolitical and diasporic solidarity perspective, it's important that we touch upon both. We'll spotlight the impact of assassinations of high-profile political figures like Martin Luther King Jr., Malcolm X, Fred Hampton, and Patrice Lumumba of the Democratic Republic of the Congo. And lastly, we'll examine the role of the media and public perception, both of which are critical to the trajectory of Black social movement, like the Civil Rights Movement, the Black Power Movement, Black Lives Matter, African independence, and anti-colonialism. So given the current divisive nature of our political environment we're experiencing here in the United States, and what appears to be a growing worry that political violence and social instability are starting to reach a boiling point. Therefore, SoulShift has decided to use this moment to reflect upon history, to put a lens on political assassinations that foreshadowed welcomed and unwelcomed radical possibilities that continue to impact the cultivation of Blackness in our communities today. So without any further ado, let's get to it, y'all. Political assassinations have often been turning points in American history, especially within Black social movement. These events have sparked profound shifts in political and social landscapes, altering the course of entire nations. As Martin Luther King Jr. once said, "Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere." This statement underscores the deep interconnectedness of our struggles and the lasting impact of these tragic events. Martin Luther King Jr.'s assassination on April the 4th, 1968, was a pivotal moment in the civil rights movement. It not only ended the life of a powerful leader, but also ignited a renewed urgency in the fight for civil rights. In the immediate aftermath, the country experienced nationwide riots and the eventual passage of the Fair Housing Act of 1968. I was born August 30th, 1968, so I found myself reflecting a lot on that moment in time, what my parents and my family were experiencing in northern Louisiana, right along that interstate corridor that if you know, you just know. My family is very intertwined with Grambling and just that whole culture. Shortly after I was born, and my father was able to get a job with the Chrysler Corporation, working in a plant. And he and my mom's moved me northward. We moved to Detroit's east side as a part of that great migration of Black people moving out of the South at that period. We were on the tail end of the Great Migration, to be quite honest. So we settled around the whole Mack and Bewick area. If you know, you just know. back in Bewick. So I'm a true East Side Detroiter, and I own it and always have been. And from there, my parents got an opportunity to buy a house on Detroit far east side, what is now called East English Village. At that time, East English Village was predominantly white. Actually, it was all white. Let's not just say predominant, it was all white. It was a community of public servants, because during that time, there was a mandate by the city that if you were hired in a city position, you had to live in the city. It was a way for the city to get its tax revenues back from its employees, have them live in the community that they serve. That didn't really sit well with a lot of those white firemen and police officers. Many of them had second homes north of 8 Mile. A lot of y'all are familiar with the story of 8 Mile, and up in the northern parts of the state. So they maintain second homes. So we are this young Black family getting introduced to the middle class, and we are offered the opportunity to buy a home in this neighborhood, of which would make us the only Black family living in this neighborhood at the time. So now reflecting back on what that actually meant, the hostilities that came with that, I just figured it was just a part of life. Those tensions were just there. I'm a young kid, so I can just adapt to wherever my experience is, because I was that young, right? So I'm playing baseball. There's a few Black kids on the baseball teams that I'm playing on. I'm in Boy Scouts. It's mostly Black kids. And I'm maintaining my Blackness through my mom's keeping me settled in a Black church. So back to the neighborhood that we moved into, that land contract was offered by a Jewish man. I don't know if he was pissed off at the people in the neighborhood or if he was a social justice advocate and really wanted to extend the Fair Housing Act to its fullest, right? So we got the house on a land contract, we move in, and there's a lot of hostile energy towards our family. I didn't feel a lot of it. I felt it in terms of bikes being stolen or ran over unexpectedly, and my parents would quickly replace the bikes. All of a sudden, I would just have a new bike, right? So they really kept me buffered from that. But when I reflect back on it, there were families that didn't want to have anything to do with me. They didn't want to have me in their yards. They didn't want their kids playing with me. But there were plenty of other kids in the neighborhood that treated me as an equal, and they welcomed me playing with their kids. I say that to say the work of social justice advocates, as it reflects in community wisdom, reverberated with my family, migrating out of the South for economic opportunities, finding those economic opportunities, working in the plants in the city of Detroit, and then my people being fearless in terms of moving to this neighborhood where we were virtually pretty much unwanted. And, I recently asked my mom, I said, well, hey, now, at the time, there was a lot going on, and y'all decided y'all wanted to move into this all-white neighborhood. We're newly middle class. My mom's working at Michigan Bell. My dad's working at Chrysler. And, I'm an only child, and they're raising me in this neighborhood. I said, did y'all ever think about what y'all was moving into? Because after that time, Detroit was still recovering from the riots in 1968. So there was a lot of racial tensions happening that my family wasn't aware of, because we had just moved into the city. I think the white people on the east side of Detroit were suffering from PTSD, and all of a sudden, this young Black family is moving into the neighborhood. Things just moving too fast for them, just too fast, too fast. But my folk were clueless. My dad might have had some awareness of it, but he just fought in the war, so he's pretty much hardcore and tough. My mom's young, a baby, protective, but none of that concerned them. Plus, they grew up in the South. They were used to dealing with racial tensions and hostile white people. So all of that tensions didn't faze them at all. Just don't put your hands on any of us and don't touch our baby. And y'all good. And that's how they operated. And they just moved on and kept doing their things. And we ended up living in that community for almost 30 years. More people ended up moving into the neighborhood, but I'm sharing that personal story to share how the effort of social justice advocates, those that have even given their lives, how their influence and their impact influenced the young family from the South to be able to take advantage of such opportunities. So, getting back to the episode, just wanted to share a little bit about JyOba X so y'all know who I am and how I come about this work and my own lived experiences. I've been exposed to both sides of the fence. I've been thrust into whiteness and forced to have to adapt and be able to survive and thrive in it while also maintaining my connectivity to Blackness. And that's something that I've had to dance around for my entire life. It has informed me on how to become a strategist and to work in these spaces of building bridges between people while also realizing that the playing field is not fair. It's not level. And I come from a family that's really grounded in fairness and doing the right thing. Uh, So King's death underscored the unfinished business of racial equality and spurred legislative change. In this moment, Spirit is calling me to this often recited quote by King that many of you are probably familiar with. King stated, "I may not get there with you, but I want you to know tonight that we as a people will get to the promised land," made by him the night before his assassination. Is drawn from his "I've been to the mountaintop" speech, delivered at the Mason Temple in Memphis, Tennessee at the time. It was made to a gathering of striking sanitation workers and their supporters the evening before that fateful night. Malcolm X was assassinated on February 21st, 1965. His death marked a significant loss for the Black Power movement. Yet, despite his controversial stance on self-defense and separation, Malcolm's influenced Black leaders and movements, emphasizing the importance of Black pride and self-determination. One of my favorite quotes by Malcolm X states, "You can't separate peace from freedom because no one can be at peace unless he has freedom." That quote by our brother Malcolm is so powerful, so relevant to the now. It continues to resonate deep within my own activist soul from his spirit as an ancestor. Fred Hampton, a leader of the Black Panther Party in Chicago, that brother was assassinated on December 4th, 1969, in a raid by the FBI and Chicago police. Notably, he was only 21 years of age at the time, from what I've read. And literally, he was just a baby coming of age. Literally. His death was part of a larger campaign to dismantle the Black Panther Party. Hampton's assassination exemplified the government's efforts to suppress Black activism. Imagine, they assassinated threats they felt disrupted the status quo of their power and privilege. Go figure, right? How dare Hampton and the Black Panthers challenge their dominion over our Black flesh? How dare them? Sounds familiar, right? His legacy lives on. It lives on in contemporary movements like Black Lives Matter right now, highlighting the importance of coalition building and community programs in fighting systemic oppression. Fred Hampton, that young man, left us with simple, powerful quotes like, "You can kill a revolutionary, but you can't kill the revolution." Yes. Along with his self-proclamation, "I'm a revolutionary." We should all repeat that every day. I am a revolutionary. And lastly, peace to you if you're willing to fight for it. Boom. How about that? Patrice Lumumba, the first prime minister of the Democratic Republic of the Congo. He was assassinated on January 17th, 1961, after being overthrown and captured. His death symbolized the neo-colonial struggle for African nations seeking true independence. Lumumba's vision for a united and self-sufficient Africa was cut short, but his assassination underscored the challenges of post-colonial leadership in Africa and foreign interventions that sought to undermine it. He left us with this quote stating, "The day will come where history will speak. Africa will write its own history. It will be a history of glory and dignity." Ashe, ashe. His quote inspires me personally and underscores the work of this SoulShift podcast, which seeks to advance the dismantling of global anti-Blackness. The media plays a crucial role in shaping public perception of political assassination. How these events are reported can influence collective memory and the direction of social movements. Media portrayals of these leaders varied significantly. Martin Luther King Jr. was often depicted as a martyr for nonviolent protest. Malcolm X. Malcolm was initially viewed as a radical and dangerous, but posthumously, his contributions have been more widely recognized. Fred Hampton was largely criminalized at the time, yet his vision and activism are increasingly acknowledged today. Patrice Lumumba was portrayed through the lens of Cold War politics, seen as a communist threat to the extent that governments like the United States felt justified to intervene in other countries' matters by murdering their leaders. While political assassinations are moments of profound tragedy, they also serve as powerful reminders of the resilience and enduring spirit of Black people and our Black social movements. From these events, we learn the importance of continuing the fight for justice and equality. Martin Luther King's legacy inspires peaceful protest and legislative action. Malcolm's emphasis on self-defense and Black pride continues to permeate through Black communities in Detroit, Chicago, Atlanta, Brooklyn, rural communities across the South and beyond. Hampton, focused on coalition building and community programs, offers a blueprint for contemporary activism and community wisdom. Patrice Lumumba's vision for African unity and self-determination remains a powerful call to action across the entire African diaspora. And while we're at it, let's shine a light on the current severe crisis that's happening in the Congo. Intense fighting has displaced nearly 500,000 people, creating a humanitarian crisis. Now, it's not Ukraine. It's a bunch of Black bodies that's going through this humanitarian crisis. And of course, the attention is not on the Congo, it's on Ukraine for a lot of obvious reasons, but still, the humanitarian crisis is a humanitarian crisis. I don't care how you put it. Just like Haiti. Haiti historically has been under severe crisis politically, mostly due to spite of Western societies, right? And when you look at Haiti's history, it's almost just as tragic. And foreign intervention in their politics could arguably be rooted back to a lot of the issues that's happening in Haiti, like Congo as well. The difference is Congo has resources. Congo has a lot of rich resources that Western societies would like to get their hands on. So yeah, they're going to be involved in all the politics of it and try to influence things to their better end. I don't care who it is. I don't care whether it's the United States or China. I think everybody need to be looked at funny if they're not African. That's just my perspective. We'll talk more about the Congo a little bit later and give y'all some resources so that y'all can look a little bit more into it, shine that light on it, illuminate it, and support it. I'll just make a quick shout out to the Friends of the Congo. They're doing some great work, providing awareness and knowledge about what's happening in the Congo that we all need to be paying more attention to. But the violence there, it's displaced people. It disrupted food production and supply chains, causing rising prices of essential goods and increasing the risk of public unrest. So how does community wisdom intersect with the lives of Black men who were publicly assassinated for promoting racial equality, and social justice. SoulShift wants to take this opportunity to honor these legacies by staying engaged in social justice efforts and advocating for positive change in our communities. All of this is perfectly aligned with community wisdom and what community wisdom is intended to do. It connects the past with the present and prepares us for our futures. These Black social movements, they don't just pop out of nowhere to be movements. They are movements that are steeped in how Black society is evolving in the United States. And that evolution is influencing the entire African diaspora, even more so now because we're so interconnected. Black Lives Matter is an extension of the Black Power movement and the Civil Rights movement and movements that were happening around Reformation after the emancipation, right? We just got through celebrating Juneteenth Day, right? All of that stuff is interconnected. And it's time for us to really start thinking about what that interconnectivity looks like, what it means. The people like the Opal Lees of the world, the Martin Luther Kings and Malcolms of the world, and the new activists that started Black Lives Matter from a hashtag. Even that had to come from the death of a Black man to raise awareness to the level of bringing a global society to bear on looking at the inequities just in our country alone. But it's not just our country. It's across the entire diaspora. It's a global campaign of anti-Blackness. That's the beauty of this Black Lives Matter movement in this moment. And we can all have a part in it. And that is an extension of the knowledge and the lived experience of our ancestors and others that have created this moment where we get to do the same to advance racial justice and equity for future generations of Blackness, Black people in the United States and beyond. So it's all intertwined, it's all interconnected, it's all an aspect of community wisdom. And this is SoulShift's component of doing that work. Personal journey for me, and it's a personal journey that I feel compelled to share with others to create something that we can all attach ourselves to. We might not consider ourselves to be activists, but most of the people that I've researched who I consider to be wisdom practitioners, they don't even claim that title of being activists or social justice warrior and so forth. They're just people who want to look out for their community. They are silent heroes like Prince. Kind of tying all of these past podcasts together, but there's a method to my madness. So, the dreams of our ancestors, all of that lives on in our actions. That's all I'm saying. All of that lives on in our actions. I'm not going to ramble any further about this because I can ramble on and get into my own feelings like Prince on his guitar riffs and start making the case for more actions and calling other things out that we need to pay more attention to. There'll be more than enough time for that, right? So I want to thank you for joining us. Thank you for joining us on this journey through history and its echoes in our present. This episode was originally supposed to be about something else altogether, and then the assassination attempt on Donald Trump prompted me to look at it from the aspect of Black social movements. Assassinations aren't anything new, something that we just have to deal with. But I want to look at it from the context of Blackness, what it means for Black social movements, how it can impact people and their lives and change nations. That attempt could influence the politics of our nation moving forward. And right now, I feel like we're at this inflection point where we could become an autocracy because we just have a group of people who feel like they're going to do whatever it takes to maintain their power and their privilege. If it means deconstructing this American experiment, they will blow it up. They will blow it up and move the hell on, even if they have nothing. They're going to make sure everybody has nothing to maintain what little privilege they think they got. If that's what you want to do, I ain't interested in going that route. I'm not going to let you do it without a fight. So, as we remember those who have been taken too soon, Let us carry forward their dreams and work towards a more just and equitable world. Let's critique the dominant geopolitical constructs that influence our world. Let's create space for an African diasporic reality that centers our truth and ways of being. I'm an advocate for the development of African-centered sociocultural institutions, philosophy, and spirituality in the context of balancing Western and Eastern philosophies that center ways of being that are pertinent to Africans and their descendants, us, right? This is the radical possibility I see with cultivating Blackness on a diasporic level, legacy building on a diasporic level, social, economic, and cultural institutions on a diasporic level. There are some who believe that there are religious and spiritual ways of being that are distinct and pertinent only to Asians and Southeast Asian societies. I've heard comments like Eastern or Western psychology or psychological methods are pertinent to Asians and Southeast Asians. It's just different. They're not in alignment. If that is in fact true for Asians, couldn't it also be true for Africans in theory? Why not ask the question? Yeah, I'm sure there's some researchers that are probably looking at it. So is it fair to state the same conditions are relational to the African diaspora? And if this is in fact the case, has the development of African ways of being been unwittingly or wittingly stunted? If that's in fact the case, then how do we go about reversing such a harmful, traumatic, and regenerative truth? These are the tough questions. Next level conversations even. In SoulShift, we'll do our part. We'll do our due diligence to provide some critical analysis for those who want to learn more and have further conversation about those radical possibilities. We recommend the following books and articles if you want to extend your own research into some of the subject matter. There's the autobiography of Malcolm X, Assata, and autobiography by Assata Shakur, and the Assassination of Patrice Lumumba by Ludo DeWitt. There are documentaries out there that I encourage you to take a look at, easy to digest and consume, like King in the Wilderness, The Black Panthers, Vanguard of the Revolution, and Lumumba. That Lumumba documentary, I almost cried at the end of that, what they did to that man. It's just tragic. It's worth taking a look at. All of those resources will provide deeper insights into our conversation in this podcast today. Websites are always good. There are organizations out there that are advancing the memories and the dreams of these individuals and the work that still needs to be done. You got the Martin Luther King Jr. Center for Nonviolent Social Change in Atlanta. You got the Fred Hampton Foundation. They also got a Twitter page for the Fred Hampton Institute. And there are African advocacy groups like the Friends of the Congo. They have a really good website where you can get up to speed on everything that's happening and how you can get involved and help out as well. So there's a lot in this episode, but I'm excited to share this experience with y'all and to go through it. So thank y'all for listening to SoulShift. Until next time, stay engaged, stay informed, and continue to push for a world where justice and equality prevail. Thank you for tuning in to SoulShift, y'all. Thank you. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, leave a review, and share it with your friends and family. Drop a comment if you have counterpoints or disagree with my take on SoulShift's stance on this subject matter, because engaging in respectful dialogue is crucial for our collective growth. Stay curious, y'all. Stay connected, and keep transforming those radical possibilities into promise. Let's keep steadily soul-shifting society together. Peace and blessings, y'all. I'm JyOba X. Y'all have a great day. We'll see y'all next week.